tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Okay, so I hope everybody can keep that in mind, keep that feeling and that intention, that wish for yourselves, whatever it is, the wholesome wish of why you came here, what you're doing here, as we sit here and be together. So I'm going to start off by just asking what could be a somewhat fraught question. So, is there prayer in Buddhism? Is there prayer in Buddhism? Okay. So, who thinks that there is prayer in Buddhism? You can raise your hand. Okay, got quite a few hands. And who thinks that there's not prayer in Buddhism? Okay, we got some more hands. Yeah, American Buddhism is like a minefield. It's like a minefield. You have to really be careful what you talk about. I mean, largely, there's maybe two main groups which are represented here, which is great, because Clear Mountain and the Dhamma is big enough to hold lots of different types of people. But you've got people who are maybe more heart-centric, maybe people who grew up in a Buddhist country, or people who've been influenced by Mahayana and are just really very in touch with their own emotions. And they think, if this monk says that there's no prayer in Buddhism, I'm going to leave. Did this monk miss the first day of monk school? What is wrong with this guy? And then you've got the other people, the other group, maybe atheist-inspired, like pseudo-Buddhist, Buddho-curious, demi-Buddhist, part-time Buddhists, not even Buddhists, but just curious, or you just walked by and the door is open, who think, if this monk says that there is prayer in Buddhism, I am going to leave. Is this guy a religious lunatic? Prayer in Buddhism? And why does this matter? What is the point of talking about prayer in Buddhism? And I think it's a great question to ask, and I think the utility of that, of talking about prayer, this way of tapping into a deeper heart space. It's good to talk about it in different ways to people who are inclined differently towards prayer. The English word prayer, the word just doesn't exist in Pali. The Buddha never used the word prayer. But does that mean that he never spoke in the direction of prayer, or in the direction of yearning or wholesome desire? So for people who, maybe do have an affinity with this idea of prayer, of tapping into maybe something bigger, it's good to talk about, flesh out, what does Theravada Buddhism, what did the historical Buddha have to say about this? And the English word prayer has lots of different meanings, and some of those meanings, some of the implications of those are in line with the Dhamma, and maybe some of them aren't, and maybe they might even be counterproductive. So you've got ideas of intercessionary prayer or promissory prayer. So if I say iti piso bhagava arahang sama sambuddho enough times, then you're going to give me what I want, right? Is that, yeah? Or if I say, Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me, a sinner, enough times, then I'll get what I want. Or if I say, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, or if I say, Namo Amita Butsu, or Namo Amitofu, or Namo Guanshi Yinpusa, if I say these mantras, which exist in most every spiritual tradition that I know of, if I say this enough, then whatever I'm wanting from whatever deity or whatever principle I'm praying to, that I'm going to get that. You're going to intercede at intercessionary prayer. You're going to intercede on my behalf. And a lot of these prayers are made in the direction of, may I not get sick, may those who I love not get sick. And to the extent that a wish is based on something which is just impossible, then it's just not, whatever you call it a prayer, you call it a fervent desire, it's just not intelligent to have a wish which is just impossible. So we've got something called these 5 subjects for frequent recollection. I'm of the nature to age, I'm of the nature to sicken, I'm of the nature to die, I'm in the nature to be separated from that which I care about, and I'm the owner of my karma. And not just me, but all beings are subject to aging, sickness, death, and separation. And if I wanted this, if I promise God or the Buddha or whatever it is, if I promise I'll do this, and then you give me that, don't let me die, don't let me get sick, then yeah, that's not a good basis for a spiritual life. It just, God or the Buddha can't do that. It's beyond the capacity. Like, all beings are of the nature to age, sicken, and die. It's normal. That's the Thai translation. This is tamada. It's just normal. Aging, sickness, and passing away are just normal. So if our intercessionary prayer or promissory prayer is of that nature, then maybe we should tweak it. Or if we have a sense of petitionary or even penitentiary prayer, such, I did something in the past, please don't let me reap the results of that. I cheated on my partner. Don't let them get mad at me when they find out. Yeah, as much as you pray, God or the Buddha, or they can't necessarily grant that. We can be as skillful as we can, and but yeah, the Buddhist teaching really is one of skill. It's not one of intercedence. So yeah, tweaking one's perception of prayer. If it is a powerful tool for you, and the Buddha did say, he talked about different practices. One good judge, a good touchstone for any practice that you're putting into practice, trying to implement in your life, is this leading to an increase of wholesome states and a decrease of unwholesome states? And if it is, then keep experimenting with it. We also want our practices and our lives and our beliefs to line up with that which is true, but we really can't know the complete fullness of what is true. So having this touchstone of, is it leading to what's wholesome in my life? But also on the side of people who are skeptical, there's no place for prayer. There's no place for this ardent wishing. I would just say that, yeah, there's so much more to, as it said, heaven and earth than is conceived of in our philosophies. And there just does come a place in our lives, in our practice, in our meditation, in our practice of restraint and precepts, that we might just, and often do and will, come up against a wall where I'm going full out here. I'm being as skillful and tweaking all the levers, I'm turning all the dials that I possibly know how. I've cranked up my mindfulness to 100%. I'm just face against the wall, and I still can't let go. I still can't. Yeah, my mind is still filled with whatever kind of unhealthy or hindersome mind state. I just can't let it go. I've done all I can. My ego is at its limit. And there might be a place here for just, a question mark, or at least a wish. And this can be really powerful because our egos, we have to admit, are really just the tip of the iceberg. And there is the whole rest of the iceberg underneath the water, and there's the whole water, and there's the whole sky, and just so much that we don't know. And just, there is a wholesome place for wishing. And that leads me to my next question. I've kind of primed you with a bit of an answer, but is there a place for desire in Buddhism? Is there a place for desire in Buddhism and wishing? Yeses? Yeses? Nice. All right. Even other people are nice too, but how about a place and not a place? Is there no place for desire in Buddhism? Sid, all right. Okay, we got a couple. You have to be discriminating with your desires. There's two types of desire in Buddhism. There's the desire, which is the second noble truth, which leads to suffering. There's tanha, which is the unwholesome, unhealthy type of desire, which is going to lead us to suffer. It's the craving, which leads to suffering. But there's the desire, which is part of the path, which we chanted. This part of right effort is generating desire. Chandang janeti. One generates desire, endeavors, exerts the mind and strives for four things: for the arousing of for the non-arising of unwholesome states that have not yet arisen, for the abandoning of arisen unwholesome states, for the cultivation of unarisen wholesome states, and for the increase and fulfillment by development of wholesome states that have arisen. And what do you do with all those bases of right effort? You chandang janeti, you generate desire. So there's very much a place for generating desire. And how do you do that? What does that look like in practice? What does that look like in practice? So something which I have been experimenting with recently could be conceived of as a prayer, a type of prayer. And it's got three parts. So first part, hopefully, won't be at all controversial. So the first part is that, as we were doing, you generate desire. So you tap into, okay, what was it that I said at the beginning of this period? What was it? Why did I say I'm here? What am I planning on doing? Okay, I want to speak the Dhamma in line with the Dhamma, and if others hear the Dhamma, may they practice the Dhamma in line with the Dhamma. Tapping into realizing what is your wholesome desire and being conscious about that. So that's the first step. Okay, hopefully not controversial yet. Hopefully not controversial. Just what is it? What is your wholesome wish? And if you didn't have a wholesome wish, you wouldn't have come today unless you really did just totally wander in here, totally accidentally. And if you're welcome as well. We got food at the end. So the second step is to create a symbol for that desire. So something that works for some people, if you're an auditory-minded person, is to have a mantra or a particular word which you can yoke to that desire, to that wholesome wish. So that can be Buddha, as I said, it can be awakening, it can be peace. And if you can have a word which can encompass your whole lives, if you have an overarching wholesome wish, a trajectory for your whole life which can encompass an umbrella desire, which can encompass all of your other wishes, a coherent wish for your whole life, a life trajectory which is meaningful and encompasses all of your other wishes, then put a word to that. It can be Buddha, it can be Guanyin, it can be peace, whatever it is. But figuring out a word that works for you. And yoga. So the word yoga in Sanskrit and in Pali literally means to yoke. It is cognate with the English word yoke, like that you put on some bulls. Probably nobody ever here has seen that, but like apparently you put like a yoke on some bulls and they stick together. So you yoke, you combine this. And in yoga, as it's mostly understood in America, yoga is yoking one's mind to one's body. And that's great. But the way it's usually used in Theravada Buddhism is yoking the mind to a particular meditation object or to a wholesome object. So what we're doing here is we're yoking our mind, we're yogaing our wholesome desire to this word. Or it can be a gesture. It can be a gesture. This Anjali is a traditional one. And if you think that is way too religious, that is way too religious for me, I will say that I did Google celebrities doing Anjali, and we've got Obama, he did the little prayer hands. We got MLK, who had a birthday, I think, earlier this week. Who else? Gandhi, he did the prayer hands. Kanye West Did the prayer hands? Who else? We got a bunch of people. Celebrities? What celebrity doesn't do prayer hands? So, yeah, it's not just a religious fanatic thing. So, but it is one which really does, it's a beautiful encapsulation of this wish. And you really can, if you can, this is the whole idea behind a mudra, is that you connect your wish or whatever it is to a particular hand gesture. And the Anjali is beautiful because you've got form, and you've got emptiness, just empty inside of that. You've got a lotus blooming. It's just right at the heart. So you can really do this anytime. If you're at a place in meditation and, yeah, I'm really trying here. You know, I wanted to stay with the breath. That was my intention. I wanted to stay with my object, to be peaceful, but it's just not working. Multiple hindrance attack. I'm having restlessness and torpor at the same time. How does that even work? Yeah, I've got the anxiety and I've got the lethargy all at the same time. I'm reaching a wall. And you can just actually bring your hands up and just reconnect with this wish, this prayer that, yeah, whatever it is, there's got to be more than just the tip of the iceberg of my own ego. Whatever that is, internal, external, tapping into that, may I know peace, Buddho, peace, peace, peace. Tapping into that, using a hand gesture or a physical kinesthetic sense, so feeling of the heart. If you're an embodied person, coming to your heart base or coming to whatever part of your body has become this sigil, S-I-G-I-L. This is a term which basically means a symbol which is connected to a desired end. So the Anjali can be your sigil. The word Buddho or peace can be your sigil. The heart base can be a sigil. So this is the second step. We've generated our desire in the first step. We've connected it with a mantra, or a place in the body, or a hand gesture. And now the third step is, how do we relate to this wish? Because it's not just the case that the more we wish, the more I bang my head against the wall, that the better my wish is going to work. We have to relate to our prayers and our wishes and our desires healthfully. And I would suggest that the Serenity Prayer is a very good way to do that. And so I'll frame that for people in a non-theistic context. So that here will be, may there be the serenity, 3 parts. May there be the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. May there be the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And notice that I changed the first 3 words from Lord grant me to may there be. And I might circle around back to that, but each of those words for most Buddhists in America, Lord grant me, unless we're talking about Hugh, all of those words are problematic in America. So Buddhism, there's a primary paradox at the heart of Theravada Buddhism that we have to get our minds around, One is the truth of not self. This is the 3 characteristics. This is true not just about me, but about everything in the universe, including Nibbana, which is outside of the universe. But none of that, nothing is self. Everything is this not self, the truth of anatta. So that's one truth. But there's also this truth, which is the 5th of those 5 recollections, which I am the owner of my karma, heir to my karma, born of my karma, action. Whatever I do, for good or for ill, of that I will be the heir. So how do you pair those 2 things? The truth that I'm the owner of my karma, full responsibility. I'm the owner of my karma, heir to my karma, born of my karma, whatever I do, for good or for ill, of that I will be the heir. I'm not a victim. I'm responsible, full responsibility, with this truth of not self, full humility. Yeah, but I can't fly. I can't, there's so many things which we come up to so many walls in our minds or in our bodies. And where we are right now, I don't think anybody in this room could just straight walk through that door if it was closed and locked. It's not. But there are limits to a human capacity, and not self. We can't just wishful thinking. We have to be realistic about things. The truth of not self. So full responsibility with full humility. So we'll look at each of these aspects. So we've generated our desire. Why am I here? We've got my word, my gesture to go along with that. And do feel free, like either really any time. And this can be an especially good practice through daily life. People talk about, how do I take meditation into daily life? A gesture, a mudra, a way of embodying into the world is a great way to do that. Just, I know what this hand gesture means. It means peace, it means stillness, it means kindness for myself, it means not self, and it means accountability. It means all of these things. And I can just breathe and come back to that. But we relate to it with these 3 principles of the Serenity Prayer. So we'll go into the second first. May I have the courage to change the things that I can. This is that truth of right effort. We generate desire. We have the courage. So the Pali word for right effort is samma vayamo, or another word is virya. Virya is the Pali word. And it is cognate with the English word virile or victor. It's the person who is strong. It's a hero, a vira in Sanskrit and Pali, and I think modern day, maybe Hindi. A vira is the hero. It's the hero. You tap into this courage, this courageous energy that I can abandon unwholesome states. This is part of right view. Actually, I would argue this is the basis for faith in Buddhism. It is possible to abandon unwholesome mind states, and it is possible to cultivate wholesome mind states. That is possible. Tapping into that hero energy, this can be done. This can be done. It is possible. And notice there's not a first-person pronoun there, and it's helpful to frame things in universal terms, because that I is tricky. The I is tricky. But it is possible. It is possible. So tapping into this heroic energy. So may there be the courage to change the things that I can. So this is the 4th noble truth, developing those things which you can develop. And we do that. There needs to be a huge place in our practice for that. A huge place in our practice for that. And it's 100% of our practice when it can be 100% of our practice. But there's also that first part. May there be the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. So this is acceptance. This is the truth of not self. This is the truth of the first noble truth, that you just have to acknowledge and accept and see dukkha. This is the way of practice known as seeing versus developing. You have the courage, the heroic energy which develops, but you've also got this accepting serenity which just sees, oh, it's like this. I can be peace. I can be at peace with this. I am up against the wall. Multiple hindrance attack. I am caring, and I'm caring as much about this person in this situation as I possibly can, and I want to care more. And it seems I've reached a limit, but actually I need to care more. Mindfulness can be bigger. There can be more wisdom. And leaning into the wall with this serenity. Okay, I'm there. And anicca, another truth, impermanent. Even that wall will pass. Even that wall will pass. If you're trying to walk through the door and it's locked, limits for analogies, but the third aspect of this is very important as well, and the wisdom to know the difference. We have to have wisdom. We have to have panya. This is the aspect of right view. the aspect of right view, the wisdom to know the difference. There's a beautiful Dhammapada verse number 80, where the Buddha said, just as an irrigator will lead the water. So an irrigator is someone who's cutting a ditch, leading a body of water, a stream, cutting it in your garden or not. You can't just do hard right angles. You need to lead it. You need to bend it. You need to be skillful with that. Just as an irrigator will bend and work with water, just as a fletcher, i.e. an arrow maker, will make an arrow, you need to make it as straight as possible in this situation. Or just as a wood turner, someone who's bending a piece of wood, first you have to use steam, and then you bend it a little bit, and then you put it into a vice grip, and then you come back a day or two later, and you add more steam, and you bend it a little bit more. Just as a woodworker would bend water, so too a wise person, a woodworker, would bend wood. So too a wise person trains the mind. You bend the mind, you incline the mind. The mind is something that you have to work with. You have to have the wisdom to know the difference between, when can I force this piece of wood? When can I force the piece of water? Water can go at a 45-degree angle. Maybe it can even go more than that. But when do I need to make it as straight as possible, like the arrow? Having the wisdom to know if you're guiding a body of water or straightening an arrow or bending a piece of wood, how flexible, how malleable, how workable is the mind right now. And that's one reason that we cultivate samadhi, where the Buddha says, when you cultivate samadhi, you can make the mind concentrated, purified, bright, free from imperfections, malleable, wieldy, workable, attain to imperturbability, malleable. Literally, it's made soft, mudu bhuta. And when the mind is soft like that, you can do a lot. You can do a lot. You can do a lot with it when the mind is flexible. One image which comes to mind, though, is that as we're cultivating this wisdom, we kind of have to be a little bit like MacGyver. Does anybody know MacGyver? TV show? Yeah, nice, Gary. You know MacGyver. It's a television show in the late 80s or early 90s or something. I think I was watching it on reruns, but it's awesome. This guy gets locked up in a room with a bomb and basically has to use whatever's in the room to make the bomb not explode. And he's great. He can just always do it in the nick of time. And so that's what we need to do. What tools are here? How malleable or rigid is the mind right now? And we can't just flip a switch, soft as possible mind. The mind is just going to be as soft as possible. The mind doesn't just always, sometimes the mind is on a dimmer switch, but if it is flexible, then we can work with it in that way. So cultivating the MacGyver mind. So just figuring out whether the word prayer works for you or it doesn't. It is important to figure out a way to work with desire, to generate desire in a wholesome way, and to really lean into that and figure out a way. It can be a very, very powerful practice. And if you can do this, find some version of this 3-step process of knowing what your desire is, your wholesome desire, knowing that clearly, yoking it with a particularly wholesome or healthy meditation word or a mantra or a mudra or a heart base or some other part of the body, and then relating to it with wisdom, knowing when it's the time for serenity, when it's the time for courage, when it's the time for wisdom. You might find it's another just powerful, skillful means, a powerful tool that you can add to your tool belt, and you don't have to be afraid of it. You don't have to be afraid of it. And it might just prove to be a really helpful thing for you. So I wish everybody a lot of growth in Dhamma, and I hope we all grow in the Dhamma and have the wisdom to be able to see for ourselves how to practice what is the right Dhamma principle to be engaging in right now. So close the talk there.
Handamayang Dhammakataya Sadhu Karang Dadama Se
Sadhu, 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 anumodami. Okay, so do you have times for questions or comments right now? If anyone has questions in here, I think Miles is a mic runner, so you can just raise your hand and we'll bring a mic to you so the people on Zoom can hear. Hey, and there are the people on Zoom. Hey, everybody. All right, way to go, Chia and Milo. All right, and Cheryl.
All right.
All right.
Nice work, Chia.
Nice. We hadn't seen you till now, so yeah. Very happy you're all here. And if you have a question on Zoom, feel free to raise your cute little cartoon hand as well.
And I have a question as well. I just wanted to respond to your talk.
Yeah.
I spent the last 2 weeks being very perturbed. And the first week was during a retreat. And I was trying to practice with it by being available to the Dhamma. And I was really trying to get samadhi where it just wasn't happening. And so I really loved your talk. But boy, not, that locked door, what I thought was a locked door. First of all, it wasn't really locked. Second of all, there's a lot of perceptual stuff going on there. But I think that my question is how do I give myself a break now that I feel like I really screwed it up, that whole samadhi thing. I just I lost it. Yeah. So it's.
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl. We can totally bruise ourselves. We just beat our heads against the wall, That's not what I was doing. This was something else. Yeah. And it wasn't monastic, domestic conflict or anything. Ajahn Nisbo was nice to me. I just scratched my head on something. But yeah, we do. We really can bruise ourselves. And there's so much talk of striving, and we learn that, okay, desire is okay in Buddhism. And we just, think that maybe the ego is more powerful and wiser than it is. And forgiveness, really, forgiveness, I think it could be a whole another Brahma Vihara, these divine abidings, loving kindness, sympathetic joy, compassion, equanimity. And that this fifth one of forgiveness, it can come under the rubric of metta, but you have to forgive yourself, and you really have to be spacious with yourself. When I've pushed too hard and I've said things which I regret, but the things I cannot change, some of the things I cannot change are the past. May I have the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, and I can't change the past. I can ask forgiveness when I'm in a place where I can really do that, then you can do that. But just starting out by forgiving yourself and being so spacious. And this is the kind of place where so an object-based practice where you're really intently at the nose, paying attention to the breath at the tip of the nose, or a mantra, that can be great. You can get your mind really concentrated. But there's also a huge place for emptiness practice, for spaciousness practice, for a tapping into and living the sphere of unlimited space. And feeling that, you can feel behind you infinitely. You can't feel the wall behind you. And holding, Cheryl holding little Kovilo in this huge space of kindness. Yeah. So please, I hope we can all do that, because it sucks to hurt ourselves. Yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn. That's really helpful.
Oh, maybe Trin.
When I think I was at Abhayagiri when I heard this, but I heard Ajahn Yaniko talk about how before he came back to Abhayagiri, when he took his leave of absence from his abbot duties at Bodh Gaya, he called upon the Buddhas Barami. And I was wondering, would you be able to explain that and kind of mechanically how that works? Or at least talk about it if you're willing to.
Yeah, so the Buddha's Barami, that's a Thai pronunciation of the word parami, which means perfection or strength. And so the strength, calling on the strength of the Buddha, Buddhanubhavena, through the power of the Buddha. And this is not really something which you find talked about, definitely not explicitly in the earliest strata of texts. I mean, you could really, a bow to the Buddha, bowing to the triple gem, or just taking refuge in the Buddha. You could take that as being a way of tapping into this, the sphere of a Buddha as you understand it. And it is oftentimes talked, I think Ajahn Nisabho's teacher, and many Thai teachers will talk about this. And it's just a framing which makes sense for a lot of Thai people. You don't need to ask many questions. Just, I'm just tapping into the power of the Buddha, the Buddha's strength. And there is a truth about reality that your entire experience of reality right now, and for your whole history and all the rest of your experience, the rest of this life, and if there are ever future lives, all you can ever know about that is what you can know about that, and all I can ever know about the universe is what can be known. So in that sense, anything that could ever be known about the Buddha as I could understand it is within the realm of big mind that I can experience. And if you can, I think it doesn't actually lend itself so well to talking about the dynamics of the structure of how that works. It's a belief, and it's a heart turning, and I think there is a way it can make sense on a intellectual level of may I interact with the fullness of the Buddha, and just leave it at that. And that is totally coherent. It's a totally coherent thought. May I tap into the full sphere of the Buddha, of knowing, of brightness. This is also a helpful dynamic. The way the Thai chanting books define Buddha is Puru, Puden, Pubukban, that which knows, that which is awake, and that which is bright. That which knows, that which is awake, and that which is bright. May my heart fully know that knowing, brightness, and awakeness. So, and if relating it to it in another way, leaning in with your heart is helpful, then lean in that way as well. Be curious and be creative with that. Maybe go Joseph, please.
Thank you, Ajahn. There is so much gratitude for this talk. The heart is absolutely radiant. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. I was so inspired by what the topic today. Wow. The two types of prayer that came up to mind for me was thanksgiving, giving thanks, prayers of thanksgiving, and requesting blessings. Because I remember a teaching saying, one who encourages, approves, and praises the abstaining from non-virtue is deposited into a heavenly state, as well as abstaining from non-virtue. So when you request a blessing, you're encouraging, you're approving of someone cultivating wholesome actions of body, speech, and mind. And then that's something you can rejoice in and give thanks in. So I was wondering, may you please chant a blessing for us so we may rejoice in goodness?
Thank you, Joseph. That's beautiful. Thanksgiving and blessings, figuring out how to relate to, especially blessings. That's another foreign concept, I think, for a lot of us. And I will definitely chant a blessing, and I'd love to do it with everybody else. And maybe we can save that for the end, Joseph, and you can do it along with us. But we can do it all together at the end. And maybe go to Peter. Do you still have a question? Oh. It's okay. We can go to Peter next. You can,
Thank you for the talk, Ajahn. Your talk reminded me of something that was said to me by, I think it was, or not, maybe not said to me, but that I heard in another talk, and something to the effect of, if you were told there are no gods in Buddhism, I apologize. And when you were becoming a monk, was that something that you also had an experience with, and was that something that you had to yourself deal with? Because my understanding is that a lot of Westerners, when they come into Buddhism, there is that thought that I am leaving the idea of a God to embrace something that's more atheistic. And what has your recommendation been to individuals who have also had to deal with that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. What's your name? I don't
Donald.
Donald, good to meet you. Yeah, no, it's a great point. And I'd say largely for myself, this aspect of making a prayer, really focusing on and being clear and leaning into this heart space prayer is mostly completely divorced from any belief that I would have about gods in the universe. Because, a big part of it is, I don't know, it's just a wish. May there be the serenity, may there be the courage, may there be the wisdom. And if it's only my subconscious that hears that, I'm totally fine with that. And if there are other beings that can hear it, I'm totally fine with that. Whoever can help, that's fantastic. But there is we don't have to take a test, like saying if we have right view, we don't have to get like a 70% on the right view test to get ordained as a monk, So I think a lot of Western monks have a lot of different opinions about rebirth in other realms, and it is taught in early Buddhism, and it is a working hypothesis for myself. Have I ever seen devas? I don't think so. Other realms? Not so sure. But do I have proof that they don't exist? Definitely not. Do I believe that the Buddha taught that they do exist, or that he did experience that they exist? I do. And in terms of how I would encourage or not encourage someone else in those directions, like if someone can lean in that direction, either of those directions, in a way which helps their practice, like if believing that there are other beings in this room, or in my room, in your room, that could maybe see me, whether that's an arahant, some psychic being or other realm, and that has an effect. Like maybe you would play less Angry Birds if you thought angels were watching, or maybe you would play less of whatever video game you're trying to play, or whatever are your addictions. If an angel was watching, would I really be doing this? Maybe not. Leaning in that direction. But if somebody's like, I don't believe in it, and actually I'm about at wit's end with people even talking about it in Buddhism. I didn't come to Buddhism. I don't want to believe it. I can't believe in it. And you can't push. You really can't force. This is like one of we come into that, as MacGyver, we come into this room, and we can only work with the faith or lack of faith that is in that room. We can't just, bend the water at a 90-degree angle and say, I'm going to have full faith because the Buddha said it would be helpful. You just can't do that with faith if you're being honest with yourself. So, no pressure. If people can't get there, there's so much that Buddhism has to offer in teachings of generosity and morality, ethics, meditation, which really don't have to have anything to do with belief in other realms. So, if it helps your practice, great. And if you don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, then no pressure. Yeah, thanks, Donald. Actually, let's go to Peter, and then we'll...
Yeah, thank you for this talk, Ajahn. A number of things came up, but there are kind of two questions. You don't have to answer both. The first one is, you were saying that there is no reference to prayer as it's defined in English in the Buddhist canon. But what is the definition? I guess that's the first question in English that isn't found there. And then the second question that maybe you could speak more about is just that anatta and the not self, and the sort of in the five recollections, the sort of, being heir to your karma. So basically you have some power, you're creating some kind of momentum, that still seems like a paradox at the end of the talk. So, thank you.
And maybe I'll just address that first, the first one about prayer. I mean, as I was trying to say, there's different, the English word prayer has so many different meanings. Probably every person in every church you would go to has a different idea about what prayer is, and these different types: intercessionary, promissory, petitionary, penitentiary, or just, that I'll pray for you. I'm praying just a strong desire. I'm really praying that, we all have peace of mind, just a strong wish and wanting that. And so it's unclear in English, which is kind of the beauty. Why I use so much Pali is because Pali is so much more precise. It's basically a dead language which was just preserved in Theravada Buddhism. So it has the clear meaning that, in one particular epoch in human history, in the Indian subcontinent, it was used for a very particular purpose, namely the purposes of Buddhism. Whereas, Sanskrit has, there's all sorts of Hindu meanings and Jain meanings, which are also used in Sanskrit, whereas Pali doesn't have that. And English is just such a hodgepodge of meanings. And if people don't like the word, then there's no pressure to use it. But if it does seem, like if your grandma wants you to say that you're praying for her, is there a way that you can relate to that word, which is intellectually honest within yourself and would satisfy her desire, her prayer? Yeah. Just one quick anecdote about prayer. So Ajahn Nisabo is a very heart-centric person. Anybody who knows Ajahn Nisabo, you can just see from before you even come in the room, you just see through the glass that Ajahn Nisabo has a huge heart. He's just a huge-hearted person. And he does use prayer in a way that I don't. He has a prayer, he tells me, that he says every day, which is just, Lord, humble me. Lord, humble me. And it's not infrequent that I feel like I'm God's gift to Ajahn Nisabo. Because, we share a bathroom. And I mean, he is a very patient person. And I asked him if I could tell you all this, and he said yes. So, yeah. Okay. Maybe go to, who's that first person? Juan.
Hello. First of all, I want to share my gratitude for the whole work that Clear Mountain is doing. It's really wonderful, and I'm really glad to be here. And my question is in regards to the sixth precept of the Uposatha vows. So I have been undertaking that precept more than the 4 days each month. And I have started to get a little bit worried for my weight, for, fasting and the weight thing. I have basically my whole life, I have been skinny. And I don't know, I'm worried about keeping the precept and maybe getting too thin. And I was wondering if anyone interested in monastic life or who is actually a monk has had to go through something similar, and how do they go through that? Because maybe the Western standards for a good weight might be different from the monk's standard of a good weight. So anything you can share about that, I believe it will be of great benefit.
Great. Thank you, Juan. It's good to meet you. So the sixth precept, which some people voluntary as monks and nuns, we take this precept all the time. I undertake the precept to refrain from eating at vikala times, at what's translated as inappropriate times, literally the wrong time. And for monastics, that's any time after solar noon to the following dawn rise. And so some people, some lay people will take that and undertake it, try to keep it all the time. Or some people will try to do it once a week or once a month or 3 times a week. So different ways to kind of up your practice to see, oh yeah, do I actually really need as much as have been used to consuming? And I think it's really important to be very conscious about the time frame. So you talk about SMART, S-M-A-R-T resolutions, which are specific, measurable, actionable, reasonable, and time-bound. So as a monk or a nun, I have undertaken this precept. The time bounding is for as long as I'm going to be a monk. I'm going to keep this precept. But as a layperson, you have more flexibility. And I would suggest, if you are experiencing some, being more specific with how long you take this on. Maybe you, if the weight loss, if it's just an intellectual worry, then maybe you just want to watch it. But if it's actually a health worry, then you might want to adjust. This rule of not taking solid foods, there are calories which a monastic can take in, and people taking the 6th precept can take in something called the 5 tonics, which are ghee and honey and molasses and fat and new butter, or navanita. Some people translate that as cheese. So, and we can take in non-caloric medicines like coffee and tea and other herbs. So you've got that whole realm of things. And there are monastics who, say, have diabetes. In some of these tonics, it's just not smart to be eating a bunch of sugar. That's just ridiculous. Are you crazy? Figuring out, being honest with yourself about what your body situation is, what your ordained or non-ordained status is, and saying, oh yeah, maybe if you've taken on, maybe trying it for a day less a week and seeing if your body responds differently that the day that you are taking food. Maybe you want to define for yourself vikala differently. Okay, I'm not going to, what the quote inappropriate time for me is going to be is, okay, I'm going to only eat from lunch till dinner, or whatever the times, just being specific about that. So there's nothing magical about eating just in the morning, but the whole principle is to look at your own situation and how much do you really need, but being honest and compassionate with yourself and realistic with your own body. And you don't want to damage your health. Good question. And I hope you can join our Discord server if you're not on there already. There's a lot of people. I think we have a lot of, probably hundreds, who are experimenting with keeping the 8 precepts at periods of time. So